Hi, I'm Carol, I'm 52 years old and this is my chateau in France. I started decorating and house renovation back in the early 2000s, which was like 24 years ago. After working with somebody else in the trade and realising that I could do a better job than them, I started out on my own, decorating for quite a few older people that needed help in their rooms and their homes and they couldn't manage, and for friends, and then we started buying houses to renovate ourselves. My previous project was a 3-bedroomed terraced house that we bought at an auction for a very cheap price. We turned that around in 3 months. That actually bought my first sports car. And second one, alongside that actually, at the same time, we renovated a villa, a 4-bedroomed 2-tiered villa with a pool and grounds in Spain. That was more for living in holiday times when the children were at home. No, when the children were off school. In the school holidays even. We also bought a 6-bedroomed Victorian house, which was 4 stories high. The top floor was completely burnt out, so we had to start from scratch. We then moved on to a property that was in the country, a very sought after quintessential village in Hampshire. It was a thatched cottage, only 2 bedrooms, built in 1503. There wasn't a lot to do in the cottage because it was listed, but we did build a triple garage onto that, renovated all the gardens and did what we could inside. New kitchen, new bathroom, and just redecorated throughout and completely rethatched the roof. After living in the cottage for about 6 years, although it was beautiful and I'd turn up on the drive every day and think, oh, that's gorgeous, that's mine. I was so proud of it. But living in the cottage, it was very dark. The windows were very tiny. As we were traveling through France and stayed in different chateau hotels, I realized that, maybe buying a chateau with big open windows and high ceilings was the way to go, which is when we started looking. I found the chateau by spending absolutely hours and days searching the internet, and I think that's what made my eyes go screw with. It took quite some years and we looked at quite a few. Some were too big, some were too old, some were too derelict, you look at a 20-bedroomed chateau and think, oh yes, that would be very nice to own that and you can afford it, but you can't actually afford the running costs and the heating costs. So when we came across the chateau that we're in at the moment, we decided it was a more manageable size for heating and bills, even though it did need an awful lot of work to be done on it. When we first moved into the chateau in March, it was -8 at night. We had no heating, we had one electrical power point throughout the chateau. We lived with extension leads everywhere. We had to get the water running, the internet set up. It was cold. The rooms were unbearable. The decoration was awful. It was indescribable. It wasn't a nice place to be. The biggest challenge of working in the chateau are the rooms are so big, they're 4 meters high. Working on the ceilings above your head all the time was exhausting, tiring. Living in the dust day after day, having to work day after day, ripping out floors, getting materials, coping with the language barrier was also very difficult as we didn't speak French. The most rewarding part of the renovation was where I'm sitting now, the salon. After all the long, hard preparation was done, putting back the gold into the room, which was originally here years and years ago, was the best part of all. Seeing it all come alive and glowing in the dusk of the sun. My favourite room is obviously the salon. It took a year to redecorate, from stripping out the floors to building walls in the cellar to prop up the beams, to replacing all the parquet flooring that had been taken out, taking it back to its original state, stripping the ceilings, all the filler, the painting, the long hours. It paid off in the end. Also in the salon, as in the dining room, all the mouldings that were here originally were broken and on the floor. I've had to collect those, piece them back together, make new mouldings from the sections that I still had, cast them, and then get them back on the wall and re-gold leaf them back into their state. Then there's also things like the original chandelier that the original family that built the chateau, it had to be taken down. It weighs a ton. It had to be cleaned, taken apart, rewired, then put back together, find more crystals to replace the ones that had been broken. And piece by piece, it all came back together. And that was all part of putting the history back into and preserving the history that is in the chateau. Where original pieces of the chateau have fallen off, you then realise that to get it back to its original state, you have to use materials that were originally used back in the day. So for instance, on the mouldings in the salon, they were made with plaster and then gesso and then painted in gold leaf. This is a process that I did undertake, and I even made my own gesso with original ingredients that they would have used back in the day. From watching programmes on television over the years, YouTube, Instagram, a wide variety of resources and hours of research, you begin to learn the trade, and you learn by your mistakes. It's nothing I've done before, you just learn along the way. Most of the time spent in the chateau is preparation work. Absolutely hate preparation work, sanding, filling, scraping, washing down, years of grime. It's not a nice job, but it's all in the preparation. It has to be done, and your rewards are seen later when you put on the final coats and you realise, yes, it's the way it has to be done, and you have to take time doing it. Some jobs in the chateau take at least 3 times as long as any other house I've ever done, and resourcing the material takes far longer as well. My favourite memory from the chateau is coming down the ladder, looking up at the ceiling and seeing all the gold glimmer at the end of the day in the sunset when the sun's shining through, and also about 5-6 o'clock in the evening in the summer where you can just sit out on the terrace with a glass of wine and think, this is mine. Looking back, would I have done anything differently? Yes, I wouldn't have worked so flipping hard every single day and for so long. Jobs take so long. For instance, this floor in the salon took months and months of trying to get the pattern right, knocking our heads actually literally on the floor with desperation. I don't ever want to do that again. So what we learned from that was just do it a little bit at a time, slowly, as they say in France, and it all comes together and it's worth it in the end. To renovate a chateau, you have to have stamina, perseverance, a love of what you're doing, a love of what you can achieve, patience, most of all patience, and someone along the way to give you guidance, and also someone that you love desperately to do it with. We've certainly had our ups and downs, but mostly we've loved being here at the chateau over the last 3.5 years. After about 6 months of getting on top of what we really needed to do to make the place habitable, we started documenting it on YouTube, and you can see the channel at Chateaudelaferte on YouTube. There are many videos on there, and you can watch step by step struggles, the pains, the delight, the fun we had on the way, all the laughs that we shared, and obviously the work that we've achieved.